This announcement is from the church board, and it relates to Karl's service as lead pastor in our congregation. You may or may not be aware that the end of this September, he will have served us 13 years already, and that, yes. And it also marks the end of his current 5-year service agreement. Recently, Karl shared with the board that he has discerned that he will not seek another term of service as our lead pastor in our congregation. He has discerned that he will not seek this, and he's discerned this over a period of time, some months in prayer and thought, conversation with Nita and with Bishop Keith Blank. While this was not anticipated, the board is understanding and accepting of his discernment, and we carry deep appreciation for his excellent ministry among us for these years. Keith Blank also affirms Karl's decision and discernment in this matter. So in a minute, I'd like to ask Karl to share some of his thoughts with us about this discernment. We appreciate your openness about the process, Karl, we really do. And the church board wants the congregation to know that this comes from Karl's own internal discernment and thinking, and it's not related to any concerns on the part of the board or persons in the congregation. Just want to make that very, very clear because that's important for us to understand. So, Karl, I'd like to ask you to share at this time.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a little harder than I thought it might be. I thought it might be helpful for you to hear a little bit about my processing of this, and especially as we talked about presenting this to you, making it clear to you, as Jerry said, that this is really the result of my own processing and discernment, and it's not has nothing to do with problems or conflicts on our staff or with the board or anything like that. When I started here, 13 years ago, in 2010, my hope was that the fit for me here in this role would be good enough that for my sake and for the sake of the congregation, that I'd be able to serve in this role for at least 10 years, because I know it's not healthy for a congregation to have frequent turnover in the lead pastor role. And so I was hoping to serve at least 10 years, and as Jerry said, I'm now in year 13. So I've moved into that. I was able to move past the 10 years. The other thing I realized as I stepped back and thought about continuing is that, as strange as it sounds to my thought life, I'll be 62 by the end of September, and I realized that what that means is that I'm closer to the end. Regardless of what I would decide about another term of service, I'm closer to the end of my time here than I am to the beginning. And so in light of that, I started thinking about, well, so then when would I step down? What would be the right situation? Because I need to do that at some point. All good things come to an end, as they say. And what I realized is that I feel like our congregation is in a relatively peaceful and healthy place. I wouldn't feel right about stepping aside if the waters were choppy. So that's happened to us several times in my time here. Anyway, so it feels like a more suitable time. I also feel like we're, as a congregation, that we're ready for, or maybe on the threshold of a new season of ministry, another 8, 10, 12 years of ministry. And it felt to me that it would be good for the congregation to have somebody in this role who could serve the congregation throughout that season of ministry. And so those things coming together just helped me to feel like, well, maybe this is the right time. Also, just for me personally, if I am 62 and still getting used to that idea by the end of September, that means I probably have another 6 or 8 years until I hit an even funnier sounding number to me, which is 70. And so that may mean that I have another window of time in my work life to focus on another project, perhaps that's a little less far-reaching and maybe a little less demanding than the role that I currently have. So it's really just the result of my own discernment, conversation with Nita and with Keith over the last few months. And as I said, not the result of any problems or anything I'm trying to get away from. So I'll have a chance to say this again as the months unfold, but I also just want you to understand how profoundly grateful I am for the opportunity to have served in this role. The Lord has used it in my life in profound ways to shape me as a follower of Jesus and as a leader. And you've let me learn on the job in some ways and develop some of those skills here, with the mistakes and the challenges all bundled together over this period of time. But I am profoundly grateful for this opportunity and for the opportunity to have served you in this way, and am pledged to continue to go full speed in this role until the end of September. I'm not planning to phase out, starting next week or anything. I know there's 5 more months. Part of why we wanted to announce it now is that this gives the board plenty of time to work at what would follow. And so that's why we're letting you know this about 5 months. But I think you have some more details to tell us about that.
Yes, I do. And that plenty of time thing is a relative term according to one's perception. Thank you, Karl, for sharing very openly with us in this process. We as a board, and I think I represent as a congregation, carry a very high regard for you and appreciation for your ministry among us and for Nita's ministry among us as well. We really appreciate your role, Nita, that you have chosen to follow. We respect you deeply, and we benefited immensely from your ministry. And I can think of many things: your teaching, your collaborative leadership style, your wise counsel, your way of including people and thinking about things. So we really have a very deep regard for what you have brought to us. We're saddened at the thought of our loss. I know I am very much saddened, and I think others as well. At the same time, we anticipate with you what ministry God will lead you into. And I just have a little bit of an extra thought here, that we often think the 60s is our maximum legacy decade, but I'm told by others who've done studies on this that it's actually the 70s. So looking forward to 70 is a good thing.
I need to reframe things.
Reframe that, yes. There's still much ahead. So now to the congregation, the church board, along with Bishop Keith Blank, has developed a plan for the time immediately following Karl's service. We plan to call an intentional interim pastor to guide us in the next few months, probably 15 to 24 months during this time. And God willing, we would have that person available to begin October 1st. That sounds a little optimistic to me, but we will walk forth in the strength of the Lord. The intentional interim pastor will not be a candidate for our long-term lead pastor for the congregation, but we would look for a person who's experienced pastor, invited to provide pastoral oversight on a month-to-month basis, and also to help us prepare for a new season of leadership with a new long-term pastor. One of the main things we plan to ask this intentional interim pastor is to help our congregation review and sharpen our sense of identity. That is, our collective understanding of who we are as a community of faith. And secondly, to help us review and sharpen our understanding of what God is calling us to in mission in the next 8, 10, 12 years, whatever this next season will be. This is very important for us to take time to do this so that we can discern together as a congregation and with the Lord and with the person as to who this next long-term lead pastor would be. Now, I recognize this is a lot to absorb in a 5-minute announcement. So we have prepared written statements, both from myself as board chair and from Karl as pastor, and you can pick those up in front of the mailboxes after the service, a print version. And also around noontime today, we anticipate that this will be sent out by email to those on the email distribution list. If you want to talk with somebody about it, I'm offering myself, and Jay Garber as the pastor development team chair is also available to talk with you about this. So let's be in prayer for Karl and for the board and for all of us together as a community of faith as we navigate these next months of transition, looking forward to what God has for us in the future.